Good day. Good day and welcome to Mental Health and You. I'm your host, Cynthia Timms. Well, beloved, how you doing? Does the weight of the world get you down? The weight of the world is heavy, I know. A lot of people feel like giving up. A lot of people feel like just going someplace and hiding. I want you to know in these times, peer support can stand in the gap. I want you to know in these times that your presence is needed, your talents, your skill set, your special skill set, your brilliance. To help me explain that and to help me sort all of that out, your presence is needed. I want to introduce my guest today, longtime certified peer, Andre Jordan. He comes with many years of peer support. He's got a story to tell. He's got a testimony. Hear him and be inspired. So, with that, no further ado, I want to welcome to Mental Health and You, Andre Jordan.
Thank you, Ms. Timms. I'm glad to be here, and I appreciate the invite as well.
Well, thank you. Thank you for accepting. As I said in the introduction, your presence is needed. As I also said, Andre, that we're living in some heavy times. I said it's the weight of the world. You're a certified peer specialist. First off, for those who still don't know, what is a certified peer? What is a peer specialist in these times? Any time, from a mental health perspective.
Well, a peer specialist, from my perspective, is someone with a lived experience, someone who, such as myself, I'm going to use myself as an example, someone who's been incarcerated, someone who's had issues with substance use, someone who's been homeless, and first and foremost, an individual who's dealing with their symptoms, their diagnosis, such as mine, which I deal with severe depression and anxiety. And I also have something else called insomnia, which I developed when I was getting chemo treatment for my cancer that I'm cancer-free now, so that's been since 2006 that I've been cancer-free. But during the process, I developed insomnia because I had to stay up all night receiving the chemotherapy intravenously. And I had to stay up 2 days receiving that medication, but it saved my life.
Yes.
You know, so after that experience, I went to a shelter. I was sent to a shelter, and after that, I got housing. But before I got housing, I was going to school for training to be a substance use counselor because that's what I wanted to be, a KSAC at first, because I had issues with drugs. And long story short, after my training and my internship, I didn't really get hired at the place where I interned at, which was Samaritan Village on 125th Street in Harlem. They only had, as it was explained to me at the time, they only had room for two interns to hire, and there was 4 of us. So I went, on a journey one day, and I ended up at my school where I got my training to become a peer specialist, which was Howard Hart, which is also in 125th Street. So I did the same amount of training, but the only difference between what a peer is and what a KSAC is that we're not clinicians. KSACs, they're more in the clinical mode, although that's about to, I think through the years, a lot has changed, especially with harm reduction.
So your training as a peer at Howard Hart, what do you think that gave you that maybe being a KSAC would not have given you?
Good question. It gave me the opportunity to feel comfortable in my role.
Well, I mean, you could still become a KSAC.
Yeah.
But that particular training as a peer, what made that so unique? What made that so more special or so special that maybe a KSAC or training as a social worker?
What made it special is that in my role as a peer, I could self-disclose.
Yes.
And I could, that's what makes the connections even more efficient, you know, as far as making a connection with the individuals that I'm dealing with, you know, and that in itself is a benefit. And also it could be, you know, if you don't use your skill set properly, the boundaries could be like overseeded.
Yeah. They can get blurred sometimes.
Yes, yes.
It's been in my experience in peer support. And that's why I think it's also important to establish those boundaries.
In the beginning, yes. Like,
You know?
like I do groups.
Okay.
So I'm comfortable in my role doing groups. Sometimes I'll disclose if necessary, you know. And what I mean by that, the groups that I do, I got individuals who will share some traumatic experiences, life experiences,
Yes.
you know. And I just want them to know that, you know, even though, you know, I work in the capacity as a professional, you know what I'm saying, I still feel what they're going through because of my own life experiences. You know, I'm not going to say traumas and stuff like that because I could say that, but I was able to overcome certain things in my life, you know what I'm saying, before I became a peer and as a KSAT, you know, and I'm still working, I'm still on my wellness and recovery journey as well.
Well, you talked about a couple of the things, your addiction, cancer. I mean, that alone gives you a testimony. That alone gives you a story.
Thank you.
You know? And absolutely, we talked about the weight of this world being so heavy, and so many people are going through like illnesses because they've lost their they've lost the, you know, their health insurance. They can't get the health coverage, or can't see the doctors that they need to see. Can't get to the doctor appointments. A lot of people in this field, patients and otherwise, they can't get the medication because their insurance no longer covers it, or the payment is so high. Whether we're a patient or not, whether they're a peer or not, I think we're all peers. Some of us just don't know it.
Right.
It's just so high, you just can't afford. But here you are still. So I guess I wanted to know, when you're doing these groups, well, when you're just speaking to someone, you know, you can feel maybe a pain, you can feel an empathy that maybe a clinician, but you're also trained. So don't give yourself, you're also trained. Yes, we're not clinicians in that sense, but we are trained professionals.
Yes.
You know, and it takes a lot. It takes a lot to establish and maintain those boundaries.
Yes.
So in this walk, I guess, Andre, I want to know it. How long you've been a certified peer?
June 5th, no, excuse me, back up, I'm sorry. January 5th of this year made 11 years for me as a peer professional, you know, since I've been certified and everything. So my journey from the beginning, the very beginning, because when I started out in the field, I was more or less on call because I worked at a crisis respite center. I don't think too many people know what a crisis respite center
Well,
is.
Explain. What is that?
A crisis respite center was developed to be a substitute for hospitalization if somebody was going through some issues that they couldn't really handle on their own.
Yes.
You know, instead of being hospitalized, they would, you know, get referred to a crisis respite center.
Right.
So I happened to be working for one out in Brooklyn, and that was the beginning of my journey as a peer specialist. And I was a per diem. I was on call. I was the only per diem that they had at the crisis respite center. So I was working all hours, 8 to 4, 4 to 12s, and mostly the 12 to 8 shift. And I got to know the whole staff as if, you know, because I was a part of the staff.
Yes,
You
of
know, even
course.
though I was on call, you know, they depended on me.
Absolutely.
You know what I'm saying? Because a lot of times some people would call out, you know, things came up, you know, with my coworkers and stuff they have personal life, because everybody's a peer there.
You can say that again.
You know, everybody, that's the staff of a crisis rescue center. It's you're a peer.
Yes.
You know, so my coworkers had life challenges too. You know.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I remember, that reminded me back in the day when I worked a crisis hotline, 24-hour crisis hotline, overnight at that.
Oh,
And we're getting calls and chats and texts from all over the world, much
Yes.
less the city.
yeah.
And you talk about everybody in that call center being a peer, whether they were a peer, certified peer specialist, a mental health counselor, a
Right.
social worker, because we were all taken in that,
Yes.
and that's why you got to be so careful in this field. That's why there's a lot of burnout, because we neglect sometimes to take care. We become, I think, so empathetic. We neglect to take care of ourselves. That's why the role of the peer, Andre, I think is so important, because we have to serve as an example, because we can't really help others until we help ourselves.
Well, basically, what you're talking about is self-care.
Self-care,
So,
yes. And that's what we talk about on this show, self-care. So what does that look for you? What can you tell? What does that look for you when you're advocating? What does that look for others?
well, for me, for myself, it has to do with any activities outside of my professional life.
Right.
You know, I'm a peer on site or whatever I do in my capacity. But then, when I'm done with work after 5 o'clock, that's me time. Getting on the bus, going home, doing things that need to be done. I might need something from the store. I might go food shopping.
Also means you're taking care of ourselves. That also means taking our medication, and I can't even stress that enough, Andre. Make sure that we taking our medication, getting to our doctor appointments. All of that stuff that we talk about, we advocate with others.
Absolutely right.
That's also self-care. Being on this show as a guest, talking about it, letting people know that there is life in peer support. There's hope, and there is joy, and there is beauty. You're not your diagnosis. You are a full human being with all the fullness and the glory and the richness thereof. That's what it's about. If you get nothing else out of this, y'all, I want you to know that you're beautiful. I want you to know that your presence is required in this world. Your presence is needed. That's why I called this show that. Be that as it may, Andre, it's still a lot going on. It's
Yes.
still a lot going on. We do this work day in and day out. We take care of ourselves the best way we can. But still, some fall through the cracks, unfortunately. It's hard. It's hard because oftentimes I'm thinking, if somebody gets hospitalized again, or somebody doesn't take their medication, or whatever it may be, we see in this, I often wonder what it could have, should have, I could have done. But I have to stop that sometime. I have to train myself, because we do the best we can. We can be there but so much. We can recommend, as you do in your job, as I did on this line, on the support line, as I do here. But sometimes it's just still hard. The weight of the world is heavy. We got, as I said, people can't afford their rent. People can't afford medication. People can't afford food. And we see that still. In your work, I just want to know, how do you balance that? The disappointments, the barriers still, if there's any. How do you reconcile that with, I dare say, the reality when people walk out that place of work, that hospital, that clinic? We could be angels of mercy and everything else, angels of resiliency within these walls. But when they still got to walk out into this world.
Yeah, I want to emphasize something, like you said, self-care as far as
Yeah.
us taking care of ourselves. And you're right, for those of us who are still taking medication, if you have a therapist,
And that's
like,
most of us, I guess. Come on now.
yeah,
Okay, go ahead. I'm sorry. Just wanted to put that out there.
for those of us who have therapists, such as myself, check in with your therapist. I'm fortunate that the clinic that I go to for my one-on-ones, I could see my therapist on the weekends, on Saturdays, you know what I'm saying, because they're available every other week, you know. Develop and have a routine, you know. I don't get too much caught up in watching the news, even though I do stay up to
yes.
current events. The news in itself right now is not, there's nothing pleasant. You know, it hasn't been for a while. So, you know, not that I disconnect from it totally, but I have other things, my routine to compensate for that, you know, because I don't want to get too drawn up into that negativity, because I don't come to work with negativity. You know, I have to keep a clear head because, like I said earlier, I deal with individuals who come to my group. Some of them are in crises. There are times I let them vent within a reasonable limit, and then we bring it back, and then we, like you said, we all support each other, you know. Whether they feel good after they leave, you know, they let me know yes, and until we meet up again. Doing the groups 5 days a week, you know, I do disclose and I do share, like, I'm not perfect. That's first and foremost, I let them also know. You know, even though I'm a peer and I work in a professional capacity, I'm not perfect, you know, but I'm there to provide a service for them, you know, to be a support to them, you know, in any way or any capacity I could, you know, and a lot of them appreciate that. You know, a lot of them even mix me up with being a therapist. You know, I mean, there's times when I was asked to be their social worker or something like that. You know, I take it as a compliment.
We do a different type of social work.
Yeah, but and I'm not down in social work because I was trained by clinicians.
But we love social workers here. I just want y'all to know.
Yes.
Absolutely.
You know, my supervisor, she's a social worker. I just met her yesterday. You know, really down to earth.
There you go.
Yeah, but
And they do a wonderful job.
yes,
They do a necessary job.
absolutely.
And so does we as peer specialists.
Yes.
And I just want to come back to something, Andre. You talked about the respite center. I'm well familiar with that as well. But I don't think enough people know about that as an alternative to a hospitalization. Because you got a lot of people coming to hospitals, walking into the emergency room when they're having an anxiety attack, or they think they're having a panic attack, when they're depressed, when they're whatever they're feeling. And that's one thing. But the role of the respite as a bridge, as an alternative, I should say.
Yes.
Can you talk about how that has been helpful in your experience? The role of the respite center. There's a few of them I know in New York City.
Yeah.
Not enough, but I think you can stay up to, like, what's the length of stay? What's the length that somebody can stay, and how do you get into a respite center?
Back when I started in 2015 at the respite center, the stay was only 7 days.
Okay.
They did make exceptions, but it had to be like a real critical reason why they would extend it beyond 7 days. You can get referred to a respite from a shelter, from even a hospital, but as long as you have a place to go to, like an address to go back to, then anybody's welcome.
Can your medical doctor or your psychiatrist or your therapist, can they recommend?
Anybody can get a recommendation.
Okay.
You know, yeah, that's first and foremost. Or you can self-refer yourself. You know, if you know about the respite. You know,
Okay.
not too much. That's another thing. Back then, not too many people knew that these places existed.
That's why, yes, I want to talk about that more.
Yeah, and you know what? I still feel that not enough people know about them. And you said something that was key. There's not too many of them.
You're right.
You know what I'm saying? So
I know about maybe one, at least in the Bronx, at least
Yeah,
one
there's one. There's
in the
one in the
Bronx.
Bronx.
Look,
Yes.
and then, but I think there's a couple in Manhattan, at least. I think some in Brooklyn, some in Queens. But as you said, not enough.
There's not enough.
And
And
the maximum stay is like 7 or the 14 days or 7 days.
no, now everything changed. Because I'm still in communication with some of the people that's
Yes.
still at the respite from my first job. So I found out that now you can stay 30 days.
Really?
28 to 30 days.
And
And this was recently, like after COVID.
Okay.
I think they was working on it during COVID, but then yeah, now it's a 28-day, 30-day stay.
And who is in a respite center? The staff? What is it? Peer specialists?
All peers.
Okay.
Well, the director and the assistant director, they're clinicians.
And do people get their own room? Do they share chores? What does that look like?
Yes. When you go through the intake process, we tell you about like the policy of the place,
Yes.
and you have to clean up after yourself if you cook. You know. Also, if you use the bathroom, you got to clean up after yourself.
Yeah.
Individuals are called guests
Okay.
at the respite. You're a guest. You're not a patient or a client. You're a guest. So we expect from the guests to act accordingly. And we engage with them when they, how can I put it? When they feel that there's a need. Because
Right.
sometimes some individuals, they like to isolate. They like to stay in the room, or they'll have a room. They know that they have a safe place to come back to other than a shelter. So they'll go out for the day. Some of them even working or going to school too. That needs to be emphasized too, because
Okay.
there's individuals that not only who are homeless and going through stuff, but individuals who have
So
jobs.
in the respite, there's caseworkers, there's social workers, as well as peer specialists. There's a psychiatrist on site. What's that?
No.
How does that look
no,
like?
we're all peers, except for the program director and the administrative director. You know what I'm
Okay.
saying? And those are the only two clinicians on site. They're basically hands off unless there's a crisis.
Now, why would somebody want to go or even think about going to a respite as opposed to the emergency room if they're given the opportunity and the knowledge?
Because it's like a home away from home environment. It's open 24 hours a day. The intake process does take place in the daytime, like the 8 to 4 shift, and sometimes maybe during the 4 to 12 shift, the early part of the 4 to 12 shift. You know what I'm saying? But we've had individuals come in where we process them after midnight on the shifts that I used to work at.
And how can they find out? Can they call 311 or go to 311? Just if you wanted a list of the respite centers in New York. I know at one time 311 did have a listing.
They should. They should. But now also the hospitals and
Okay.
any program should have those listings too as well.
Okay. I'm just asking because what about if you're not part of a program? What about if you're not part of already a program and you're off the street or you're having a crisis? I mean, call 988, y'all, which is a 24-hour crisis line. If you're feeling a certain way, do call 988, the crisis line, 24/7. And I do believe, from my experience, you can get recommendations from that.
Yeah, absolutely. You should. Yeah.
Okay. Yes, I just want to give the viewers and those who's tuning in, recommendations and alternatives. This is what we do as peers.
That's a good alternative, going to a crisis respite center. And like you said earlier, there's not enough of them. That's why most of the work that the hospitals get through the emergency room, the ER, most of the people are in a crisis.
Andre, as we start to wrap up, we got a few minutes, 2 or 3 minutes left. What has been the greatest joy, if I can put it that way, of being a peer? What have you learned about yourself? Maybe you didn't know. That's the question. What have you learned about yourself All things considering where you used to be. You may not be where you want to be quite yet, but all things where you are at still. What have you learned about this journey? Your journey is your journey.
As a peer?
As a peer, as a man, as a black man in America, black man in the Bronx in New York City. Yes, about you.
Well, I could say that doing this work, it's been a learning experience. You know, because I've also done case management work as a peer too.
Yeah.
You know, I've had a caseload at other junctures in my life, in my journey, you know, from other jobs. And in that capacity, you know, I was putting out a lot of fires. You know, I dealt with a caseload of 50, maybe 60 people, you know, before I got the job that I'm working at now. And it was a lot. But the people that I was on my caseload, they appreciated everything that I did for them. Like you say, I had to tell them about taking their medication, going to their doctor's appointment, taking care of themselves, which a lot of them didn't have that motivation to do.
Yeah.
You know, they would come to my groups and they would just come in there and just want to just be there, you know, to just be in my presence.
Just be in your presence. That's a good way to end, because I want you to know as we come to an end, I want you to know, people, that your presence is required on this earth. Your presence is needed. Your beauty, your resiliency, your smarts. If you need help, reach out. There are places that will fill in the gaps. You're not alone. So for mental health in you, I want to thank Bronxnet. I want to thank my guest, Andre Jordan, for being part of this ongoing experience of mental health and you. God bless you. Your presence is needed. Thank you, beloved.
Thank
Be well.
you.
Jason, let's go see your room.
What do you think? We kept it a little spare, so you can decorate it how you like.
Dinner! Go?
Excellent. Soccer is fun. Yeah, I saw you guys out there.